The Raiders have an elite defense. That is what you will see on YouTube videos. People will point to how in the second half of the season or when Antonio Pierce took over, the Raiders' defense became elite. Now, what you might not know is why people are saying this. People react better to positive news. Those people are playing for clicks. They're playing for the crowd. They're not telling you the truth. They might not even know the truth themselves, really, because they could be homers. But they, I believe, have an agenda by saying the Raiders' defense is elite. Let's go back to last season and just go over who the Raiders faced as the quarterbacks they faced. Russell Wilson, Josh Allen, Kenny Pickett, Justin Herbert, Jordan Love, Mac Jones, Tyson Bagent, Jared Goff, Tommy DeVito, and Daniel Jones, Zach Wilson, Tua Tagovailoa, whatever his name is, Patrick Mahomes, Joshua Dobbs, Nick Mullins, Easton Stick, Patrick Mahomes again, Gardner Minshew, Jarrett Stidham. Now, what is wrong with this list? Start at the top. Russell Wilson passed it. You could even say when he was on Seattle, he was in a perfect situation. They had, for most of the time, they had an elite defense. And that's how he benefited greatly. Now, Denver has a good defense, but it wasn't as good as Seattle's. And they didn't have as good a running game. And that's basically how Russell Wilson has succeeded. It's a reason why Denver cut him and is willing to pay his salary. I don't know if it's just this year or to the future. Why, the only reason Pittsburgh signed him is what they have to lose. Someone else is paying his salary. Okay, Josh Allen. He is arguably the best quarterback on this list. And they soundly beat the Raiders in that game. Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett is a clipboard quarterback. He is not a starting quarterback in this league. He is a backup. And the Raiders looked absolutely awful that night. I remember it was a primetime game. And they were just awful. I think it was a primetime game. I don't know. But they were awful. And they couldn't beat Kenny Pickett. Then they played Justin Herbert and Khalil Mack, Armstead, Derek, what's his name? I'll forget his name now. Of the Kansas City Chiefs. The sack record. Almost did that in the first half, mind you. Basically, Aiden O'Connell was thrown in and asked to run I'm not going to say a complex version of the offense, but he was asked to hold the ball way too long to wait for something to happen. And most of the time, Khalil Mack was holding him, you know? So, Justin Herbert got hurt in that game, and Aiden O'Connell improved in the second half, especially in the fourth quarter, and came close to coming back. Jordan Love. I don't have the love for Jordan Love. He is one of these pedestrian type of quarterbacks that runs a bit, does simple passes, operates in sometimes with that option play, which is very college-like. I still see him making, like, rookie throws. I don't think he's that good. I think he's highly overrated. They're reaching for straws. I mean, if you're going to start... I hope they're not trying to compare him to someone like... what's his name? Now I can't even remember his name. The Rodgers. I hope they're not even coming close to. They play in a pretty bad division, I think. If the Bears are in their division, that's bad enough. The Raiders don't have any real cakewalks in their division because they're not that good. Next up is Mac Jones. This is the Patriot game. So the former Patriot who coached this guy, drafted this guy, was able to dominate him, sort of. And Mac Jones, no one is screaming and knocking on the door for Mac Jones. He was traded, but not for much, and not for good intentions, if you will. He's not someone's new starting quarterback, I don't believe. Tyson Bagent. Again, they made him look like, I don't know, Joe Montana in that game. I mean, he was not missing any passes. And really, the Raiders were flat. I remember they were extremely flat in that game. Because that was at Chicago, I believe. And they didn't even look like they were even trying. Elite defense, yeah. They're playing a joke of a quarterback. And they were just running all over him. Jared Goff. He's, again, one of the best quarterbacks on this list that actually look like a functional NFL quarterback compared to, like, someone like Jordan Love, who not even close. Jared Goff looked like a quarterback. And the Raiders got beat. Tommy DeVito. And I believe he got injured, and then Daniel Jones came in the game. That was the Giant game. And if you're thinking because the Raiders defense shut them down or whatever, you have delusions of grandeur. Next up, Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson was going to be replaced last year with Rodgers, but Rodgers got injured. No. Zach Wilson is not an elite quarterback. He's not even middle of the pack, I don't think. Really. Tua Tagovailoa, or whatever his name is. He has to function in a certain system, and he threw a lot of yards against the Raiders in that game. The score was much closer than his performance. He picked the Raiders apart. I don't care what anyone has to say about that. He picked them apart. Patrick Mahomes. Now in this game, this was a normal Chief-Raider type game. Chiefs beat the Raiders soundly. The next up is Joshua Dobbs, Nick Mullins. Now, had Nick Mullins started, like he did, I believe, a couple years before when he was on San Francisco, I think they would have put up 30 or 40 points. Because when he came in the game, it looked like they had a quarterback. I'm not saying an elite quarterback, but he was doing things Joshua Dobbs. Joshua Dobbs is... We're talking about practice squad type player. So Nick Mullins could have beat the Raiders like crazy in that game. The Raiders didn't score any points. They lost 3-0. Next up, Easton Stick. A couple things about this game is Easton Stick was obviously not really ready for this game. And the Chargers were imploding. They were turning on their head coach, and that is why. And They did not have any motivation in that game. You could tell by just how easily the Raiders were scoring left and right, any which way. It didn't matter. Aiden O'Connell picked them apart, but it wasn't even close. You saw, their safety or whatever, the one most Raider fans wanted to pick, and the Chargers picked him. Can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he was just, you could tell he wasn't into the game. He was way off. He wasn't even, he was easily fooled. That is why they gave up that many points. The Raiders could have set the record if they were going for it. Based on what's happened in the past for these teams in the AFC West, I would have went for the record. Yes, I would have. Next up is Patrick Mahomes. This is the Swift boat game. You have Travis Kelce. He is distracted by whatever this fake Taylor Swift thing. I don't even know what it was about. I don't even know if they were boyfriend and girlfriend. I think it was some sort of stage. I don't know what it was, really. Could have been a combination of the two, like some sort of stunt, publicity stunt. But Patrick Mahomes, he had teammates not in the game and distracted, and that is why the Chiefs lost that game to the Raiders. Because Aiden O'Connell didn't complete a pass for the next 3 quarters, I think. So, in a normal Chief-Raider game, the Chiefs would have beat the Raiders that day. Next up, Gardner Minshew. They had to trade for him. Sign him so he didn't beat the Raiders again. This guy falls into the same type of category as that other one. Remember it was the year before that when he was on the Rams and he had he just signed with the Rams. He was out of football or something like that. He was on Tampa. What was it? I can't remember his name. He was on Tampa Bay last year. He's like one of those type of quarterbacks. Maybe a little less mobile. There's nothing special. You're talking about middle of the pack at best. Jarrett Stidham, clipboard. He is a clipboard carrying Patriots quarterback. He's just a backup. That's all he is. And Denver is not going with him. Trust me on that. Now, if you think that the Raiders defense, just because they signed a defensive tackle, is going to, just dominate like the 85 Bears, you are delusional. Completely delusional. In fact, like many free agent signings that the Raiders do and overspend, he could turn into a bust as far as free agent. A free agent bust because he won't fit in a system that does not help him. A defensive tackle cannot succeed. I'm talking about one that actually sacks the quarterback and stops the run, unless there's someone behind him doing their job. And who do the Raiders have behind him? Who do they have at cornerback right now? According to the Raiders.com, Cornell Armstrong, Jacorian Bennett, Brandon Faison, Nate Hobbs, Jack Jones, Sam Webb. There's your elite shutdown corners. They have a lot to prove. A lot. And I believe there's a couple of people off the list. I don't see the midget right there. What's his name? Let me look up who the Raiders lost in the In other words, they lost at least a couple cornerbacks in free agency. Okay, they had Tyler Hall. He is gone. Meek Robinson. What about that other one? Yeah, Meek Robinson. Yeah, he's the one. Meek Robinson is the one I'm remembering. Yes, he's gone. But these guys weren't good. They really weren't. You know, if you think they were, and just because, I watch a lot of videos, I play Madden, these guys are good. If you think like that, you know, you got problems with how a team is built and how you're never going to be satisfied by the end result if something doesn't change and the Raiders stop building teams around like cake toppers. And by cake toppers, I'm talking about Devontae Adams. And they've done this before, Randy Moss. Remember, the Patriots traded for him. And all of a sudden, he became a star again. Because, you know, they knew what he was, and they were getting him cheap. That's the only reason they signed such a player. They won every game except the Super Bowl. But you don't build a team around that. Now, I know Raider fans, they have this love affair with Antonio Pierce right now. And they hate anything that goes against it, including whatever the Patriots, Patriots West brigade of McDaniels and Lombardi's father, and all these people connected with New England, obviously, and their way of doing things. Now, I would agree, McDaniels was, you know, what they even thinking, why Mark Davis hired him. And the same question, you know, why did he hire Antonio Pierce? He's letting the players, he's letting the inmates run the prison. And that could be problematic. Especially if Antonio Pierce is allowed to force some sort of ridiculous Mike Ditka-like trade. To trade up in the draft for an undersized quarterback. And I'm talking about undersized in frame. I mean, on this page right now, which you cannot see, I'm just looking at a couple of the free agent signings. And a couple of them just stand out. The running back, Alexander Madison. He doesn't look like he even has a neck. It just his head and his neck are about the same width. I'm going to take a wild guess and say he's 243. Do they say his weight? 215. 215 pounds. And then you have Christian Wilkins. Those are two big men or whatever. And someone like a Christian Wilkins, defensive tackle like that, he's going to be the type of ones that are going to be hitting people like Jayden Daniels. And my argument for this draft is the likes of Christian Wilkins cannot succeed without some help in that secondary. And the Raiders have not had a good cornerback for a long, long time. There's a couple of ones they signed over the years that we all liked, but it really, if you're talking about just the Raiders draft, who they drafted that actually worked out as a cornerback, you have to go back to Namdi, or whatever's Asamoah. Really, the Raiders have the most ridiculously bad drafting. Raiders draft history. And I've been trying to point this out, that just by going by the first round, I don't want to get too because it can get really bad if you start looking at the second and third round failures, because they are numerous. We can look at them too, but look, 2023, Tyree Wilson, picked 7th overall, hasn't done anything. No pick in 2022 because they wasted it on Devontae Adams. And now the perception is, Mark Davis he doesn't want to get rid of him because he thinks he sells tickets. I think the Raiders' poor play on the field sells tickets for other teams. 2021, Alex Leatherwood, no longer in football. 2020, Damon Arnett, I believe he's in jail. Same year, Henry Ruggs, jail. 2019, Jonathan Abram, bust. Josh Jacobs, I would not call him an elite running back. He was hardly ever there, meaning he was often injured or coming out of the game and blah, blah, blah. And worst of all, when he was having that good year in 2022, they didn't trade him. Good teams know. At that point, you don't hold on to a stupid running back. You get rid of him. You get some picks. He was leading the league in rushing at the time, I believe, before the trade deadline. Or was high ranked. Trade him. I don't know what the Raiders would have got, but they would have got something. They would have got something that would have helped them potentially now. And before him, Cleveland Farrell. Bust. When you're selected 4th overall, you're expected to be good. I don't care. Colton Miller, solid. Gary Conley, bust. Not even in football anymore. I'm going back to 2017, 2016. Kyle Joseph. Let's pick someone who's injured. 14th overall. Bust. 2015, Amari Cooper. 4th overall. This was a good pick because it was the right pick. This was the best wide receiver on the board at the time. The year before, Khalil Mack. That was the pick. You could argue that he was a bargain at number 5. You could argue that at that time. And you can go back from there. We're getting back to 10 years now. And DJ Hayden, I don't think so. No. And you got to think in terms of any quarterback that the Raiders have for a starter, whether it be Aiden O'Connell, Gardner Minshew, or any quarterback they draft. If you don't have a right tackle, and a right guard, I might add, it's going to be all for naught. The Raiders are not going to be able to run the ball well, like last year, and they're not going to be able to throw the ball. They're going to struggle mightily. And this is why I say This is a make or break draft for the Raiders if they want to move forward, because they didn't do anything last year, despite the fact it just all fell in front of them where they could have succeeded. If you look at those quarterbacks again that the Raiders faced, the Raiders had Derek Carr, you would have been talking playoffs. Derek Carr would have got the Raiders to the playoffs that year. They would have beat most of these teams. The Raiders would have went, something like 12-5, 13-4, something like that. They would have probably, like it happened that, with the, you never even know when you're talking about playing the Chiefs. The second game, like I said, was because of all that Swifty stuff, all the distractions. But you set up Derek Carr like this on the Raiders. They might beat the Chiefs twice. And some of these other teams, some of these games were like, they were the worst offensive performances of the year. There was a long stretch of it had bad opponents. Really, Josh Allen, Jared Goff. I guess you would add Tua and Patrick Mahomes. Those were their top competition. The rest of the quarterbacks were garbage. I mean, I would add, Justin Herbert too. But who knows what would have happened in that game? If Derek Carr is playing in that game instead of Aiden O'Connell. Because in the second half, once Aiden O'Connell got settled in, he almost came back. I mean, really, that was a huge mistake, getting rid of Derek Carr. I don't care what anyone says. But if you want to go forward, the last thing you do is try to trade up for Jayden Daniels, which I don't think is going to be possible. Or, set your eyes on, and probably have to trade up for him even, because he's rising in stock, I guess, right now. That other quarterback, who's had 3 broken legs and stuff. And he is being hyped. Michael Penix Jr. He's had all these injuries. He was in college more years than Bluto or whatever from Animal House. I don't think it's a good idea. Because what's going to happen in the draft, just like I was saying in the beginning with these people on YouTube running videos, all these positive videos and dream videos about trades and draft, just all this hype. It's just like the weather. They don't give you an objective view of the weather. If there's a big storm coming, they over-exaggerate it and basically say, going to get 40 inches of snow. And what happens, you get rain. It happens in my area. They don't necessarily say 40 inches of snow, but sometimes it's 8 inches of snow and you get rain. Why are they doing that? Clicks. They want you to sit there and either watch the TV or go to their website that's full of ad units everywhere. It's worse than a porn site. They're selling the weather. And football, in particular, is a grifting operation. It's all BS. The hype. How often do they talk about all these potential trades and stuff like that, and nothing happens? Well, very subtle things happen. And you cannot just trade all your picks, because the system, which the Raiders never seem to understand, and they still in the Al Davis, swing for the fences, roll the dice, Vegas style. They don't seem to understand how valuable the picks are, because the players you sign or re-sign take away from what you can do in free agency and what you can do in the draft. Your draft picks have to be your affordable pieces of the puzzle, because it's a salary cap. I know this sounds redundant, and this sounds, everyone knows that. Do they? Do they? Look who the Raiders prioritize. Wide receivers and running backs? It's not how you build a team. It's really not, especially nowadays. And I would argue that there's going to be some surprises for the Raiders if this all fizzles out and there's no huge trading up. You got Aiden O'Connell in his second year. I think he's going to improve with an offensive coordinator, making him possibly the focus. And he's going to have Trey Tucker in Maya in their second year, who could take a big leap. I think that's what's going to happen. Because if the Raiders think they're going to sit there at 13 and pick Michael Penix, I think Denver is going to trade with what's that team? Minnesota, who's going to want to move up and select a quarterback. And they think it is going to be J.J. McCarthy. It could be the other one, depending on who the Patriots pick. I don't think the Patriots are trading away their pick. They don't have a quarterback. They have Brissett or whatever his name is. So Denver's going to trade down. They're going to pick up some extra picks. And then they're going to select Michael Penix. Or the Raiders are going to trade up to select this guy. And they're going to give away